after yelling at myself. It's all good.
All right, so we're back with a section on resources, because every good chat deserves a section on resources. And so I have a selection of resources, as does Elder. He's got his selection. We may have a crossover every so often, nevertheless. Yep. Chances are we won't. Maybe one, maybe just one. I tried to comb my bookshelf. This is what I could find. So, I need a drink. I need a drink. Much better. All right, so easier to find. I have this one. Shall I kick it off? No, actually, you're my guest. Why don't you kick it off? You give me yours, and a quick words.
Well, I didn't get the aromatherapy books because I mean, probably the best one. Actually, it's not pull up because I couldn't find it. That's the Bible. If I had to be honest, the actual Bible. Where are we? There we are. The actual, I'd say the Bible of aromatherapy, if you can get your hands on this book, is probably by far the best thing because in depth it goes through from history to chemistry, how to use the essential oils, etc. So let's say we'll start with that. Is this one here called The Complete Guide of Aromatherapy by Salvatore Battaglia. Now, Salvatore is the owner, from memory, of Perfect Potion here in Melbourne.
Okay.
He is our head leading aromatherapist of Australia. So he works with a lot of the aromatherapy companies and internationally, all that sort of stuff. But that book there was the textbook. Literally, it's like a Bible. It's thick. Everything, every exotic essential oil, base oil, everything, insert here. It's like in there. And a lot of books will be like the generic. That's real, like aromatherapy documentation, including the gas chromatography sheets and stuff like that. If you want to ask, that's what we didn't talk about. I just remembered. How do we know the difference of the oil? Sorry, like the good quality oil.
Yes. Well, let's quickly cover that right now.
Yes, I just remember, like, we didn't get to talk about that. So legally, you can ask your aromatherapy supplier, whoever you get your oils from, for the gas chromatography sheet. And they can legally provide you with that, or it may be on their website. And that will show you the chemicals, the natural chemicals that are found in, let's say, lavender. So if it has a certain amount of linalool, which is found in lavender, therefore you're buying lavender essential oil. So a lot of scientists and stuff know what they're looking at. We're looking at the graph. But for us here in Australia, if you want to know whether the essential oil is therapeutic grade, you need to look at the little registered number called AUSTL or AUSTR. Therefore, that has gone through the process of the government standards that it is a therapeutic grade oil. If certain essential oils don't, brands haven't got that coding, you can ask them for maybe a batch number or the GC or the gas chromatography sheet, we call it.
Very nice.
That's how you would know for quality. There are heaps of brands out there, I know. Oil Garden, I like. Aroma is probably the head brand here in Australia. They've been around for 30 plus years. They're wholesale to the public. You can buy online. You can go into, if you go down to Fitzroy, you can go into their lovely, massive, like almost warehouse basically, and every oil is in there possible you can imagine. And they're not expensive. They've got all those details. They also own the Oil Garden. So if you ever go to your chemist and find the Oil Garden, that's owned by Aroma. And the other one is In Essence.
Okay.
So the blue packaging, it was like a blue box. We'll find again at chemists and health food shops. They're also owned by Aroma. So
interesting.
They also now own, I found out they own, there's another company in Sydney. is it New Directions or something like that? They also own that. So you'll find, again, it's just the label, the brand name, but it's the same
Everything
oil
behind
from
the
the same
scenes.
company. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Well, thank
So
you
there's a
for
little.
including that in that. In that was a Holy Mary one.
I'm like, I just remember, like, oh, we forgot to talk about it. But no. So yes, that's how you know if you are worried. Just check those things. It's really easy. Um, like I said, I mean, Aroma is your best bet. You'll find everything on there. They're really reasonable. You're not going to pay an arm and a leg for a bottle of frankincense or,
I
all of
like
that stuff.
Aroma. I'm
So,
going to write that down. Aroma.
they're really good. Like I said, they're by far, that's the oils I use in a lot of my products because they are therapeutic grade. I've used them for the last 9 years. There's another leading company as well, which they're a budding company to them called Essential Therapeutics. But they're like we can call it like the Chanel, the branding. It's the brand. It's all about the label and the brand.
Yeah.
But it's the same oil company. It happens.
It does.
So books, where do we
Book.
start? Well, we'll talk about, because we're talking about earth magic. So I would say like hoodoo, root working, conjure is very earth magic based.
Yes.
I find that it is very, because, you're working with, plants and roots and curios and bones and anything possible. It's very earth
Animal parts,
based.
and body parts, and
I have got a couple of pieces of like alligator paw and things like that. I've been gifted, or yeah. So the one that I was going to say that's like Cunningham's, which I didn't pull up, which is an encyclopedia. I don't know if you've got it with you. I've left.
Yes, I do. Here.
You do. I'd say like for
It's a bit
herbal
further.
stuff, quick reference. That means it's well used. Mine's the same. It's like old,
Doggy,
falling apart.
This book is in the worst condition. No other book in my library looks like this.
It's
but
probably
it's
by far.
dirty.
It's like literally, it's an encyclopedia. I'd say that would be one of the best if you're starting out, new beginner, wanting to know. Quick
Yes.
reference, easy. For hoodoo, this. Oh, yep.
I will do a cross compare for a second. The structure of this book, it's the name, the traditional name, the actual Latin name, then the folk name, its gender, its planet, its element, its powers, and its magical uses. And it has a breakdown, and that's pretty much the way that it goes. The one complaint about this book is while it's big and it includes a lot, it doesn't have all that much in the end.
Right. So this is where if you're wanting more the root work, African conjure, all of that sort of stuff, it's a bit more in depth. So this is the Hoodoo Herb and Root Magic book. It's complementary to that one. So if you're wanting to know a bit more about, I don't know, let's just say Angelica root. Why don't we just pick that, right? It will tell you, where are we?
You look for your Angelica, I'm going to look for mine, and we'll cross compare the information because I think that would be helpful.
So you'll find with Angelica, it will tell you the folk name. So Archangel Dongwei, which is Angelica in Chinese or Mandarin, in TCM, with Dongwei. Holy Ghost root, Masterwort.
Masterwort, Garden Angelica, and Archangel.
So see a little bit of a slight difference. Like they'll tell you, like in their language, obviously would call it that, or in their folklore traditions. Then it also has the different botanical names. So on this you will find Angelica Angelica Archangelica, Angelica Proporia. So there are different species of Angelica as well that they'll talk about.
Yeah.
Then you'll go through, the root is powerful guardian healer, said to enhance female power, protect children, ward off evil, and improve health and family matters. Whereas I think that,
Well, this one here says magical use, or well, powers, exorcism,
Yep.
protection, healing, visions. And then it says magical uses grown. The plant is protective. Use it in all protection and exorcism incenses. Sprinkle the four corners of the house with Angelica to ward off evil, or do this around the perimeter of the house. Added to a bath, Angelica removes curses, hexes, and any spells that may have been cast against you. The root can be carried in the pocket as a gambling talisman amongst some American Indian tribes. Angelica is also used in healing incenses, mixtures, and smoking the leaves is said to cause visions.
Right. So Cunningham will talk particularly about the protection exorcism component, whereas with Catherine Ironwood here, she'll talk about to bless a new baby, and each one is broken down if you're wanting to try a different, I don't know if you'll see it clear enough.
Yes, I can.
So, to cure fear, for protection from, from an unruly man, to control your partner. So there's another aspect of how to use the herb or root. So it's like you can get that taste of both, cultures. And so whatever your intention is, you can still use that herb for its counterpart, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I like it. So having more than one book is always good. I mean, Culpeper's Herbal was the classic at one point. And then having multiple books. There's another one, actually. I'll just quickly grab it because it's brand new. It came out like this year. And let's just face it, it's building on Scott Cunningham's, but it's magical folk healing, herbs, oils, recipes, health, healing, and magic. That's a DJ Conway book, and it's a 2019 book. So it's pretty damn new. Similar situation again. So
cool.
Now that we've had a taste, let me see if I can. I don't know. They have very different herbs in both books.
That's the good thing. Yep.
We've got Angelica Archangelica, or A Officia Analis, Umbrella Umbrella.
Yeah, it's the botanical names are bizarre, I know.
Yeah, I can't get my name around it, but it can, like, Masterwort, Archangel, Garden Angelica, Hot Sun Fire, and I'm just curious. Deities, Venus, parts used, leaves, root, seed, basic powers, protection, and exorcism, and then it's got a breakdown. So, you'll get a similar thing across most books, but some will go more in depth. So, hold up yours again.
You can see that?
Yes, I like it. So you have the Hoodoo book. I have Scott Cunningham's Magical Aromatherapy.
Got that as well on my shelf, yep. It's
little and it's old. And it doesn't have diagrams, which I would like, but it is slightly more comprehensive. It does go part, it's got the name, the known name, then the Latin name, the part used, the planet, the element, the magical influence, and it has a little bit of the history as well. It's simple, it's sweet, and it was really, really affordable in back in the day. This book, from Now and Zen, it cost me $13.95.
Wow.
I don't even want to tell you when I bought this. I was young. This was published in 2002.
Wow.
Anyways, so there's that one. Give me another one from your pile.
Where do I even start? What do I even have? So why don't we go with, well, if you want to do a little bit of a taste into just the sort of surface of like hoodoo folk magic. This is by the Pagan Portals, if anyone knows the Pagan Portals.
Book?
Yeah, it's a little taste. Do you know what I mean? It's
yes.
If you want to know a bit more and just try, sort of get into it. And they have recipes and everything else in there as well, and a bit of the history and how to work with, altars and brooms and all that sort of stuff. It's a cute little taste into hoodoo, I suppose you can call it. So it's not a bad book. I think it's like what, $12? I don't know how much it is online. I from
I
memory.
think it is. Hang on, I'll go and find mine because I tend to leave the labels on them.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, it's nice to do. Here we go. This one cost me $11.95.
Yeah.
So $12.
It's not a bad book. It's a cute little book. The recipes are really cute too. So I mean, like, you know, they've got the Come To Me oil in there, which, you know, says use rose, patchouli, vanilla, and then it says add a pair of lodestones to charge the oil. So they don't tell you. So this is the other thing too. You'll find it doesn't tell you what base oil to use. So you get up to personal use, you know, personal choice. They don't tell you how many drops. So I think it also adds in the idea of like maybe you want to do like say maybe 10 drops of each, or you may want to do like whatever you're sort of drawn to put in there. So that's the only other difference.
They've got a good little glossary of terms in the back of common hoodoo terms that you will that you hear, not listen to, but things like axé, which they spell very differently to the way we spell it in Brazil. The conjure, crossroads, doll baby, dressing, essential oils, anointing oil. So that there's a difference. Fixing, tricks, root track magic, gri, laying of tricks, mojo, you know, that kind of stuff. So you get a little glossary of terms.
I also like how they do the deities and spirits too. So they talk about saints. They talk about, you know, the Orisha as well as mentioning here. And it just touches on that sort of the surface of
really
things.
basic but clear stuff.
Yeah.
So you'll come away with this if you read this tiny little book of how many pages is it?
It's a small one.
Page of books of 92 pages. You will walk away with at least a working foundational knowledge. When somebody says hoodoo, you can go, I read a tiny book about that. Yep. So interesting one, pagan portals. They do a book on everything, don't they? Pagan portals.
Which is pretty good though, because I've got a few. I've got ones on like Hippolyte, Pan, Bridget. I used to sell a few of them too, but they've been very hard to come by from a lot of our suppliers because a lot of people are buying them. But at the same time, I'm going to be honest, it's actually cheaper. This is why I've stopped personally from a business perspective. I stopped buying a lot of books because you can buy them cheaper than wholesale, I might just say, on Booktopia.
Yeah.
So I just send people like, if you want to buy the book, buy it online. It's a lot cheaper.
That's
which is
exactly.
a shame, because then, you know, it's like you used to love, like me, used to love going to like little magical shops and finding that book or that deck of cards. It's not
fun
worth
like
it.
that anymore, unless you're in America, in which case it's fun over there. Lucky American witches. I know there's plenty of you in Coven, so I hope you appreciate what you have. All right, well, let's move on to this next book because I found this one at a secondhand bookstore. It is The Essence of Magic, Tarot, Ritual, and Aromatherapy by Mary Kate Greer. So Mary Kate Greer is like a tarot historian, and she literally writes the book on tarot, really big into partnering with Rachel Pollack, and they do the Omega Institute Tarot Convention every year, which is amazing. I had the extreme pleasure of interviewing Mary and Rachel, and she is the person that you just want to hug. And I was telling her that I found one of her books, and she's like, oh yes, because she was very into the occult from a study perspective. And so this has, you know, magical aromatherapies plus their association with cards, with specific tarot cards. Ooh. So if you want to, you know, weave a little like, you know, magical tarot into the equation, this is a great book because this woman does her research. She is extremely well read, extraordinarily intelligent, and you know, her material is incredible. Like, oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. Like aroma imagining with the tarot oils. Ooh. Oh, look, she's got it laid out with the old tarot cards.
Oh, I love it.
Isn't it great? Good. So it's a fun, I don't even know if it's still in print, but like I said, I got it. Oh, this one, looks like it was $28. Burke Road, Camberwell. Aromatherapy essentials oil supplies. That's That's who sold that book.
Burke Road. Wait, it wasn't Aroma, was it? Wait, Camberwell. Was that not in? Wait.
Camberwell. No. Telephone number 882828322.
Rings a bell. I know that rings a
bell. That
bell.
was where it was sold because it's got the little sticker on the back there.
Sticker on the top.
Yeah, so good stuff. So that was my The Essence of Magic, Tarot Ritual and Aromatherapy, to prove yet another way that you can use aroma magic with divination systems such as the tarot. Just saying.
There's another series. I should have got the book actually. It was on my shelf. I saw it before. There's a series called The Fragrant Pharmacy. And there's one called The Fragrant. It's called The Fragrant. Hold on, by Valerie Ann Wormwood, I think, or Wormwood. Her name is. A Fragrant.
I know this book.
I found them at op shops for $3, and when I did my course 9-10 years ago now that I think about it, the teacher said to me, "These are really good to look as references." Here you go. Someone's selling on eBay if you want to buy them on eBay, but you can still find them. They're called The Fragrant Pharmacy and The Fragrant Mind.
Nice.
They're nice books. I've got on my bookshelf. I actually found them at an op shop for like $3 each, which is nothing. But they're all old recipes and methods of application. You know, from like old, like I don't know, maybe what 40s, 50s time almost.
Yeah.
And it's got so much knowledge, and then and they'll talk about specific conditions and what to use. So you've got eczema, or you suffer from, psoriasis or diabetes and things like that. So they'll tell you what oils you can use that are also safe. And that's like the Fragrant Pharmacy, and then the Fragrant Mind is more about the meditation, stress relief, more of the spiritual type thing. So there were like 2 or 3 books in that series. They're really cool books.
I like it. Well, to that, I would add, I don't know which one to choose. I've got a whole bunch of, I want to get my Scott Cunningham out the way and then get into my hoodoo books. Yeah. So I've got Earth Power by Scott Cunningham. So we're into Earth Magic. This is Earth Power.
Yes.
This really talks about techniques of natural magic, fire magic, earth magic. It talks about nature, the spirits, and the earth. So to give your elemental magic at least a bit of context, and to understand that, oils and earth magic are a part of earth magic, it helps to understand the elemental magic structure, and you're going to get a nice little simple overview. Scott Cunningham, he was great in his time, but we know that there's much more substantial than this now. But back in the day, this was as substantial as it got. So this was once upon a time an amazing book. People are like, I don't get why, Scott Cunningham is such a big deal. Because he was the first and only on the shelf. That was why he was such a big deal. So
that really made witchcraft more, it was,
open and approachable.
Yeah. Because it was very limited to, we had Wicca in the 50s with Gerald Hudner and stuff like that, but this is where a lot of the authors branched off and created these texts so we can also connect in our own practices at home. I don't know what else I've got here. I'm looking at my books. I pulled out all the root work ones.
Have you got any ones other than the hoodoo and root work ones? Just there on your shelf to show?
I've told you the other 3. I think that's it. And I've got pretty much the same ones you've got too, the magical aromatherapy.
Okay.
I've got Cunningham.
In that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show the last 2 Cunningham books that I've got, and then all I've got left is the hoodoo books that we can talk about in more in depth. So here I have Magical Herbalism, which is a nice one, and I also have the Magical Household, because we have talked a little bit about, earth magic, home and hearth magic. It all goes hand in hand. Again, these are Scott Cunningham books. Gosh, it has my old phone number from years and years ago on it. That's incredible. This is why you leave labels on stuff, folks.
Yes.
But this one's really interesting in terms of using, using, what do you call it? Just botanicals in a more healing capacity. And I can't find the right words, but speaks for itself, magical herbalism. And then the magical household is spells for rituals of the home. So heaps of different great things, little tips and tricks for some great home and hearth magic. So that's all my light reading, if you will. Now we move on. Hand it over to you, Michael, and we can get to the hoodoo, conjure, root work section.
Well, I think one of the books that sort of kicked me off into, besides voodoo, oh my Lord, I can't even speak today, to hoodoo and root work and conjure, was actually this. This is one of the first books, or sort of first books on voodoo itself.
No.
And it's such an old, I know you can tell, like I've got things everywhere with it. But this was touching, here we go. This talks about, obviously, more of the voodoo aspects of making, mojo bags and setting up altars to the Loa. But also talks about, like, spiritual baths. And the thing that I love about this book is the way that there's just so, it's colourful and you like images and it's just a little bit different. This was the first books that I picked up. It was a bit more, and there's also the Veve in there.
Oh, yeah, the sigils.
It sort of like sparked that interest into other cultures at that time. So this sort of crosses over because this was like sort of the again, it's like a little taste into what it is. But if I had to really pick, like, one of the best ones that I would pick right today would be this.
You mean this?
Yes. This book, I kid you not, is...
It's good. It's
amazing.
What it is.
It is amazing because there is so much, besides the recipes, even things from like feast days and saints and spirits, and it's just, she talks about even spells and how to make sachet, powders.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I do love this book, and I've spoken to Denise before as well. I used to stock this book. Actually, I need to get this book in stock because this is one book I really want to stock on my shelves for the shop. But it's so hard to come by, like certain supplies and things like that. But
so true.
It is just jam-packed, honestly. And this is a revised version.
Magic from the New Orleans Creole voodoo tradition. And
Yes.
so it is the traditional oil recipes that we were talking about, or the traditional oils, more to the point. You will find the recipes for those here, along with floor washes, baths, powders, candle magic. Just, it's so good. Like talisman, spirit waters. Here's an angel water. So the formula. And it's in its section. So this one here is Law Keep Away oil, Leg by Saint oil, Kiss Me Quick. Oh, it's such good ones. Such good ones.
It's a good. This is an updated version. So if you have her original one, it actually had. It was a different cover. So it was actually with Marie Laveau on the front cover.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was actually, and the recipes inside, because I've actually read the original one, actually had the amount of drops per blend to get it to smell like that. So I'm pretty sure I've read it somewhere. I know I've read it, and I know it was this is a revised version, but it's amazing. Like this, or if you're wanting recipes and wanting to delve into that, this is your go. Like, it would be a go-to. I highly recommend it.
I like it. I specifically like chapter 5. Prepare to memorize tools, materia medica, curios. So, and it's comprehensive. Like it's a comprehensive book. Really, really interesting book. Great for the formulary, the botanica section, and you can make from this. You can make. I would still encourage you to, if you've got this book, to get to see the actual recipe, then to research that recipe and see how other people do it, and if there is a little nick or a knack that you can add to it to make it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what else you got there?
This is another one which I think we spoke of before. This is the older print, but this is the Sticks, Stones, Roots and Bones is another one.
I have
So
the
I think
new
there's
print.
a revised.
Stones, Roots and
Yes, yeah, and you can tell it's faded too. Like, look how like yellow the page is. I've had a long time.
This is a new acquisition for me. I'm talking the last 2 months is when I acquired this book. So I've got the new version. It's very beautiful, matte finish. And I haven't had a chance to get through it yet. But when you get a new book and you do the first flick through, I was like, this one I just opened up to Warrior's Path Powder.
I don't. It's not revised or anything. I'm not too sure, but this one I've had for a while. It's not bad. I like that they've got recipes in there and how to use them. So it's similar to that one, but I find with this it's very limited with just recipes for certain desires, I suppose you can call it. I mean, look, there's a 4 Thieves vinegar. If you ever make that 4 Thieves vinegar recipe in there, which tells you apple cider vinegar or distilled white vinegar and 4 cloves of garlic.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Ceremonial disposals here as well, but then so did the Voodoo Hoodoo spell book. It had how to dispose of spell remains. That was in there, in here as well. Great. Yeah, it looks good.
So it's not a bad read, honestly. The one thing I did like about this is where some people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that. There are some things you can't grind enough with a mortar and pestle. So a coffee grinder. She talks about using a coffee grinder.
People.
Honestly, if you want like dust, a pure dust, like every now and then I'll use a coffee grinder because I want it to be that real fine dust that can just be sprinkled like on the threshold. And I like a lot of people always just think of mortar and pestle, which is also great too because you're putting that intention in. But that if you really want that real fineness, that just it's not visible.
Sprinkling powder, I'll pound an incense into the ground, and you can get something pulverized, but it will take you hours and hours. Now, I don't personally use a coffee grinder because I don't use sprinkling powders all that much. And when I do, I'm prepared to put in that 5 hours. I'll make it over a couple of days, and I'll just keep going back to it and back to it. I'm old school. I have used in the past. I've been encouraged to use it. And I have, to make sprinkling powders, 5 seconds, folks. 5 seconds and it's done. Versus like 3 days.
The other thing that I do now in my practice, because I've used coffee grinders before, I'll pulverize and then I'll sift it and then put it back in and pulverize and sift it so that I'm making it like finer and finer as I go. Like, with the intention. So I'm just like, it's just accumulating. I'm like, and I'll sit there for hours. It is like hours, or I'll come back to it. Same thing, and it's just like it's fun, and I love using sprinkle powders. I love using sprinkle powders.
It's so good to use.
It is.
My first foray into love magic was through a sprinkling powder, a love powder. I remember like 11, and I was like, I'm gonna sprinkle this on my little crush, and I managed to get it on my hand and touch his hand. And then we kissed.
Of course.
So it worked.
Cute. I love it.
Good stuff. All right, what else?
That's the other one I've got. Now, I've had this for a while too. I paid $15 for this.
Outrageous.
This was from Uncle Festus at the time when I think it was 2004 I bought this.
Oh, yes.
Spells and Formulas. This is another one.
A classic.
Yes. Which, again, this is the one I got before the Sticks, Stones, Roots and Bones there. This one here, though, is English, is very formal in the sense that they've also got like the altar and how to set it up and particularly do certain petitioning, which is okay, but I think I find, working for so long and, in witchcraft, it doesn't really matter where you place certain things. It's, it's the intention at the end of the day.
Exactly.
But again, recipes, how to make certain incenses, You know, they've got like Louisiana Van oil, which is really nice. You know, use 2 tablespoons of lemongrass, 2 ounces of oil, a pinch of blessed salt added to each bottle. You know, and then it says add 9 drops to a bath water for 9 days daily. So it's like, you know, the traditional have
Old
a bath
school.
for 9 days. Yeah. So things like that. This was actually pretty good. And then they've also got prayers in it as well.
Mm. That's interesting. I have the Charmer's Psalter. This is a book of Psalms used in traditional witchcraft, which is oftentimes used alongside your magical making, believe it or not, especially in diaspora traditions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fun. I have to add to that Working Conjure, A Guide to Hoodoo Folk Magic by Hoodoo Senwa.
Oh, I haven't read that yet. Yes, I wanted to read that.
It's a good one.
It's on my to-read list.
I want to entice you to this. Okay, A Day in the Life of a Conjure Man. This is the introduction. On a cool autumn day in Georgia, the leaves of the trees were turning green to orange to gold, while some were transitioning to brown. Both the trees and the surrounding area were truly beautiful to behold. A nice breeze shuffled the leaves that had already fallen. The evening approached. The sun began to work its way down to allow for night to begin. The potent transformation of light to dark was starting, the time when spirits are awakening. The day is for the living and the night is for the dead, you see. After the sun was gone, a man dressed in dark-coloured pants and a red shirt approached the graveyard next to one of the local churches. This man had a cigar in his left hand, a bottle of whiskey in his right, and his head was covered with a navy blue cloth. This man was a conjure man or hoodoo man. And then it goes on to tell the story of the cemetery. It's so good. Isn't it good?
Love it. There is a lot of cemetery work with conjure as well. A lot of people tend to do that. And crossroad magic as well. It's a very earthy practice.
It really, really is. Like, crossroad magic is massive in Brazil as well. So back in the day, when I was growing up, you could not walk through any crossroad whatsoever without seeing magical workings, candles in earthen jars with like burning and offerings and farofa, like just placed there. One would be over here, the other one would be there. Sometimes there'd be 5 or 6, you know, on one corner.
Yeah.
Like, and you have to, you know, ask for permission, especially if you're a magical practitioner, to walk along and across that working so that you keep that working going for whoever it is that did it, but also away from you so that you don't get involved in that energy. Very interesting. Very interesting. But this is, yes, hoodoo folk magic. It talks about crossroads cemetery work. It talks about the story of the conjure man. It talks about hoodoo, the evolution of hoodoo. It's a great informative book. Gordon White recommended this one to me because we were talking, and he's like, I've only read one, Hoodoo Senwa. It's a pretty good one. And I'm like, okay, that'll do. So, and he
read.
That's all we need. I'm like, that's all I needed, Gordon. That's all I needed. And have you got another one there?
So the other thing we talk about with earth magic is puppets.
Mm.
About puppets and
which is on the cover of this one here.
Puppets, voodoo dolls, you know, spirit doll babies. This is another good book. Again, it's by Denise Alvarado as well.
Ooh.
It is Voodoo Dolls and Magic and Ritual, and this is amazing because she talks about how a lot of people think it's about sticking pins in dolls, and it's actually very disrespectful to do that to the dolls, which is a thing. I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't stick pins in dolls, but you could, because, you know, a lot of witchcraft will say, yeah, you know, you put pins in where you're sick and you pull them out, like as a sympathetic magic. But she talks about the, you know, origins of where it started. I'm just trying to find for you. So she's also got, you know, she talks about how certain dolls are made for, like, you know, wedding days or devotions, or for, you know, for saints, one's for spirits. You know, they're like the lucky cat you know, doll as well. So, and she's got in here as well, there's one on Trump, which is in there as well. She's made one. The doll babies. but how to make them, how to bind them out of moss and sticks originally, rather than, you know, sewing. To then even how to make them like out of paper, you know. So if you don't have fabric, you don't have anything,
sticks and moss,
paper, and even how to draw them and cut them. So she's got the patterns in there. So it's really, really in depth, how to, you know, treat them, how to anoint them, how to activate them. So, you know, it's like a process of, you know, how many days. It's really like, I do personal puppets for myself. Every now and then I'll make certain dolls for certain intentions, we'll say. But I, you know, something like feeding the doll with an oil or a powder, or, you know, having them on your altar as a focal point. So it's very earthy because you're creating something out of materials. You know what I mean? It's very, you can stuff them with, you know, with anything. You can even stuff them or anoint them with, you know, soak the roots if you want, in oils and stuff the dolls. You can be so creative.
Yeah, you really can. There's no correct how-to for making a doll, and a doll can then also breathe on into a different aspect of witchcraft, which is the fetish. So you can make a doll into a fetish. This is less traditional, but people will still do it. Give it enough share, you will make it into a fetish. But typically speaking, if it were a fetish, it would have a living something to it, like it would be made out of have a piece of bone in it, or a crystal, for instance. So something that's very natural and of the earth, that has its own resonant energy, and then the herbs, and then all that kind of good fun stuff. So a bone,
it's basically
fetish, and so can a voodoo.
Yep. It's basically giving it life. You're creating life, you know.
Yep.
So by doing that, you know, it's having respect for it, and not, you know, like I said, you see a lot of movies, sticking pins in dolls, and, you know, people,
it's a misconception.
You know, all the Hollywood stuff that happens, and yes, that can be true. Like, you could do that, but at the same time, they're not meant to be used for that purpose. They're meant to be used for connecting to spirit, to, you know, bring in prosperity, or for protection, or, you know, like creating a guardian for the home, for example. You know, you could make a puppet to watch over your home. So it's really about breaking down those misconceptions of what dolls should be like, but it's very earthy. Easiest that I remember growing up, flour and water and salt.
To make a golem.
To make a golem, but to make a doll, same thing. And, you know, you could stuff it, and, you know, it's very kitchen witch, but it's very like back to prime, or back to basics. What do you have to create? Sticks and moss. So you don't have moss, maybe you want to make a rosemary doll. Think of like a corn doll. We do that, you know, for Bridget, and, you know,
the corn dollies. Yeah, that's exactly right. And you can also, in keeping with, say, you can make tokens, like you can make offertory tokens where you get, you know, your basic clay. You can either make it yourself, the clay, or you can buy something that's very earthen, and then add to it some herbs and some oils, your intentions, even a crystal, and, you know, put it into a shape. And it can be an offering coin for a deity, for, you know, a particular magical working that you might be doing. Let's say you're doing prosperity work. You might be able to, you know, infuse that with gold foil and draw like symbols for money, and, you know, press it down and keep it as a token, and then put many of those around your, you know, your magical candle work, and, or any other kind of prosperity magic that you might be working. Put it in a charm bag, for instance, but it's all made from earth. And it's all made from, you know, utilizing botanicals and oils, and then anointing and intention and hands-on craft. I think that's something that's worth mentioning as well, is that earth magic is very hands-on craft. It's probably the witchiest of the types of magic that you can do, because it's all about the making and the creating. You physically use your hands to manipulate whatever it is that you're doing to make it. So it adds your sweat equity in there, your intentions, your, you know, all that is you. And once it's finished, it's something that you can be proud of because you have physically made it. There's always a sense of pride, even if it's like a kind of sideways pride where it's just like, oh, that looks like crap, but you're still stoked that you went through and made something. So it's good, positive stuff. Last book that I've got before we wrap up for today is Old Style Conjure by Star Cassius. like a vintage classic, if you will. It's a new book to my collection as well, but I think that this one is really good because it has, let me see if I can find it. Coven knows, but this is something that can confuse people, really. Let me see if I can find it. Why? Oh, here. Planning your petition. So it's got a section here where you can learn to write an effective petition. There's a lot of different opinion about petition writing. Some people do it this way, other people do it that way, and it doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as when you're doing it, like you look at all the options that are available to you, and when you do it, what feels natural to you? Like how does it feel as you are doing it? And if it doesn't feel supernatural copying, then try to add your own flavor in there, because it's all about your intention.
Yep.
Now, Mr. Michael, is there anything else that you would like to add before we wrap up today's talk?
I think that's probably it. I mean, we've covered much everything. I think the other thing too, for a lot of the beginners, and I always say this to a lot of beginners into, spirituality and the craft, we'll call it, they feel like they have to buy every single goddamn item that a spell requires them for. And I say to them all the time, it's not about having every, I need this specific crystal, I need this. It can be as very simple as, get a clear quartz as a substitute, or when I remember growing up, lavender. Lavender can be used for just almost about everything, really. Rosemary can be used for
cinnamon,
chamomile,
sugar, coffee,
household
salt,
sugar, lemon. Like, you've got so many things that are readily available in our kitchens, that when you're sort of starting out, don't be afraid to just experiment. I think that's the biggest thing, especially with earth type magic. Experiment. Don't be afraid to get dirty. Get in the mud, get out in the garden, go and really connect with that energy, because it's what's going to make your practice and grow and develop and change over time. So that's
exactly right.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. Well, with all of that said and done, we've had a lengthy chat today, and we do hope that you have enjoyed the topics that we were able to cover during this conversation. If you guys want to find Elder at Earthly Alchemy, I'll make sure to have all of his details, all of his business links, all of his personal Insta links, all of that kind of good fun stuff available to you, and you can go over and say thank you to him for dedicating his time to us and our beautiful coven today. So Michael/Elder, thank you so much for taking this time out to talk to us. It was an absolute pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much. I actually enjoyed it. I had fun. I did enjoy it. Thank you for having me.